everybody, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Conrad. Today, we are going to be talking about preventing meeting black holes and looking at typical meetings and then how you can get almost superpowers working with teams and doing remote meetings. As a reminder, go ahead and throughout the session, ask your questions in the questions panel, and we will answer those at the end. So, how you doing today, Conrad?
Man, I'm doing great. Nothing like a meeting. Well, I guess it's more presentation than is a meeting. But to talk about black holes and meetings. I mean, you had this, haven't you, Spicer? Not here, obviously. Other places.
I once had a meeting to plan for a meeting that was to plan for a meeting.
I think there's some meme out there right now. It's like this meeting could have been an email.
Oh yeah.
Which is hilarious because it's like, well, okay, it could have been an email, but really what it could have been is a Teams post. I mean, as we're saying that, like, I know I'm totally all in on this stuff now, right? No, but I'm doing great. I think this is, it's funny, whenever you use something like Teams or a lot of other products, sometimes it isn't a lack of awareness of one particular capability. It's a lack of maybe awareness or a kind of a practice or just a cultural connection to a combination of items. So this is a really good one. I think you and I were out for a walk and kind of talking about this, and some of it was just realizing how some of the things that we do all the time just aren't really known by a lot of other people, right? So let's talk about what we normally see in a lot of these meetings. So normally, what's a meeting? Well, it's a bunch of people coming together, to kind of talk. But in these typical meetings, they're not always sharing. They're not sharing anything, or once the meeting is done, it's kind of lost. Sometimes you sit in a meeting, even online. We're talking about remote meetings here, and you can chat, but they only use the chat within the meeting, and then when the meeting's over, they kind of neglect it. Now, by the way, if any of you have Teams today, I bet when you leave here, you're gonna say, "Oh my goodness," or "We did some of that, but not all of that." And I challenge you to use at least one more of these things that are out there to kind of help you move along. And I would love it, especially because this is gonna be put on YouTube, for you to respond to YouTube. Well, what was the one thing and what difference did it make? So that's a challenge to you all. And then the other thing is you go in these typical meetings and the follow-ups are in emails. I've seen this with customers that even though they're using Teams, they still follow up in email because it is just so habitual to them. But we have to really kind of shift that and change it to something different. So, one of the things is when they're done with the meeting, because normally you'll pull people together into a meeting because you normally are in the same team or the same cross-functional team, and you might even be just a subset of the people that are in your Microsoft Teams. I know it's so weird when I use those terms, but this small grouping of people, I'll use that. This small group of people are a subset of all the people in the team, but they'll have a meeting because not everybody needs to be there, right? If it's a good quality meeting, it means everybody at that meeting was intended to participate. Everybody in that meeting is adding value directly to that meeting. Everybody in that meeting has some action or execution to take away from. That's a really good meeting. And sometimes they're doing this. If you think like in a committee and a subcommittee, that group is doing something for the other group, for the larger team. And so so they'll say, well, now that we made this decision, let's go back and in our Teams channel, let's obliterate everybody else with details they don't know about. And the reason they didn't, because they weren't a part of that meeting, they didn't need to be, but now they're getting bombarded with things. So anyway, it kind of goes sideways. But what we're going to show here is how you can capture all that, manage all that, and bombard the greater team still in that group and the people. So what I did here in this one, just a little bit different than we normally do in some of the Coffee with Conrad. Sometimes it works out, but this really is very visual. So I'm going to go through a few little screenshots here that just helps you out. So here was just a meeting that Sean and I we were having together real quick. And one of the things to note is that if you hit the little action button at the bottom. Yeah, nice. Yes, no haircut there yet. I know. Where's the haircut? This was me when I was groomed. COVID really breaks that. Anyway, so when you go in there, you can click on the ellipses, the three dots, and then say you want to do meeting notes, and then now you can start taking meeting notes all in one spot. Now, yes, you're taking notes of the meeting while in that meeting, and we'll show where this all comes together. So again, in the Teams meeting that we are having together, we can write this. I wrote a couple parts, and then Sean wrote some other parts of it. So we're able to kind of split up some of the duties and work on it together. But then the next part is, well, we also wanted to do some sharing a little bit. Now, this is obviously not the greatest art that we were doing, but the point was, he was able to use his pen, draw things out. I had my mouse, so like my drawing was terrible, but I just did a little red thing over there, a little smiley face. But then we also, on the right-hand side, we also were having a conversation. So Sean not just did the drawing on whiteboard, which again, to access this, you actually have to hit the share button. That's the little button on the bottom there with the rectangle and the arrow going through it. You click share, it's all the way to the right. You'll see whiteboard, and you can either open up the app to do it, or it'll do within the team site. So very, very cool. So you can go in there and start drawing on things together, still within the team. Again, why is this important to this, Conrad? Hold on, I'm almost there. So again, also in the meeting chat, we're able to share a link, able to share a diagram or a picture that Sean has. So we're having a really productive meeting, sharing information, drawing, clicking. We could share screens. We can do all this information. But the one other thing that we can do is record it. Now, why am I going to record it? Isn't it scary to record things? I kind of feel like it should never really be scary to record a productive meeting, because one, people should always behave themselves. Two, if it was valuable for us to be together, to meet and discuss, it's valuable enough to capture for future retainment, only because sometimes other people need access to it. Sometimes I need to remember what the heck I said. And sometimes we forget, as good as we are, to take notes on something. But we always ask, hey, is it okay if I record it? Yes or no?
And if I can call something out, there have been those moments, I mean, at Agile IT, at other companies, where something truly gold happens in a meeting that will change a business. And I'm thinking of the time you and Matt Sosman started talking about the way Agile IT works with our customers, and you accidentally in that meeting created our solutions architecture and diagrammed it in a way that was really easy to understand. And I wish we would have gotten that meeting recorded, but it was just the three of us gabbing around a whiteboard.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes you don't know, and it's, and this is a process that we're going through. Like, well, maybe we should just record more things, and we know, like, well, that was a trash meeting, whatever. We could just delete it, but just capture it, right? I mean, it's there for you. It's in your subscription. I mean, this is our service of Microsoft 365, right? We have it. Why don't we use it? Anyway, so here in this meeting, we diagrammed, we talked, we shared notes, we sent links, we have a shared image. Like, we did a lot of good stuff out of it. And then we wrap up the meeting. Now, at that point, normally some assets were there. We'll say, oh, I have a link, and where am I going to put it? Should I put it someplace else? And we'll try to figure out where to do it. But you try to do that, but a lot of times, like, I have another meeting, I gotta get going. So now this is our meeting. Our meeting's done, and here, when you can see here on the left hand side, this is in my conversations pane. So inside Teams, conversations on the left. And right there, I didn't want to show all of it because it shows all my other meetings and things like that. I do want to show all that. So I just took a little screenshot of that section because it's my most recent. Two things I want you to notice. One, it says prevent meeting black holes. That was the meeting we were just in, right? Just finished like this. So if you use Teams today, you've seen this. And then it says, well, the last person. So, I made the last comment to Sean, and that's what ended up showing up at that time. So here again, you're seeing the output of that meeting. Remember we saw on the last screen. Here, I'll go back to it just real quick. You saw us that, show the notes in full screen. Here's the link, here's the picture. They're still there. Okay, so now this thing is still there, and I'll tell you, many people just like forget about this and go away. But here's a cultural shift for you. So even after the meeting is done, the people that were in that meeting, if I had additional questions, like I did for Sean, like, hey, I want to turn this on, this is great. I was like, what is this? What I need to do. And he said, oh, don't forget to change the language to English, because when you do the video, if you don't set it to English, I mean, how does it know how to transcribe it? So I was like, okay. So I went and enabled it, wasn't there. And I was like, oh, it's there. Oh, but captions aren't there. Oh no, captions are there. And, I put a little funny thing, and I put the GIF, and it was good. We were still conversing through that meeting conversation with those that were in the conversation, or that were in that meeting. And so I didn't have to go to another individual chat. I didn't have to send another email. It's all within the context. So anytime we want to go back to the discussion that was based off this meeting, we can actually go back into this as a thread and continue the conversation. And I'll tell you how it gets better. Even one more thing. So again, post meeting, we continue the continued conversation. When the meeting was rendered, we were able, you see the picture, you click on it and it opens up, and now you can see the closed caption that was built in. It does this itself. I do have to change the language, but it'll do this itself. And then now we can also see this conversation or read through it if I'm, if I'm on someplace where I don't want a lot of the audio to come into play, or somebody just needs to read it. And inside of Stream, you can actually see the full transcript. Does this all on its own. Same meeting, no other crazy magic, just two crazy kids up there having a meeting together, putting this stuff together for you guys, all built in. So, that's pretty exciting to know. I can go back to it, I can share it. But even better, if you were inside of a, let's say that was just a meeting that I put between he and I. But let's say we're going to that kind of subcommittee feel again, and you're within one of your teams. So like, let's say you were in a sales team, and we had some people that were attending a meeting talking about, their number reviews. They got 30 people in this team. There's about 10 people that were going to be in this meeting. If you click on, if you're in that team, that one team itself, this little place where I marked yellow here, you hit that camera job, it'll start a meeting now for those people in the team, and I can start adding people into it as I want it. So I can click on it, bring the two people in, whomever I want. When the meeting is completed, instead of it being its own thing, you'll see it looks like this. It's got a little camera on it, says meeting started. Everything that we did before is still there, but inside this one little bar. So if you click the 7 replies for you and Sean, open, it'll expand the whole meeting. So people that weren't a part of it can still see it, and they can even participate in the responses, but they don't need to necessarily do it. One thing I failed to mention, if you're scheduled to be in a meeting and you don't attend, and other people are attending, as they're making comments and notes into the thread, the other people who are not participating because of whatever reason can actually see and respond to it, even though they're not in the meeting. Pretty cool. One last thing. So we had this great discussion between Sean and I. We having all this great conversation. I put the threads together, and I was like, I think Kristen really should be a part of this. And you know what I did? You see the top part here? I just added her to the meeting. The meeting already happened, but I added her to the meeting. She can now watch the recording, see all the content, see our thread. You have a choice. You can say add to the meeting and not show the history and limit. So you have control over that. But I did in this case. So now she gets to catch up. She gets to see everything we said, wrote, video, all the content, and can participate. So this is what I mean. This meeting wasn't in a black hole. It wasn't like two people met. We don't know what happened. We don't know what was captured. People didn't take notes. Nobody updated anybody else, to then say, we really should have had these other two people in the meeting. Well, guess what? Now I got to do the meeting again. Two black holes. If there's such thing as double black hole, this would be it. So, this is a really great way. Again, if you do Teams today, you can do this already. But these are the types of things we normally work on with our customers when, you can have Teams, you might be using it, but there's all these little pieces of it that we don't necessarily do training. We do onboarding. I like to phrase it as it's coaching, because you kind of need somebody to guide you along in your team with your data, in your process. Makes all the difference in the world. We can do a week, 3 to 4 weeks, or 7 to 8 weeks, depending on what you kind of need. And it's really because we get animated by this, and we know the difference that it can make for customers when they start to learn these little things, versus I just use GoToMeeting to do a GoToMeeting meeting or something else, but it doesn't connect with all my other conversations and people and content. That's the difference that Teams can make for you. And these are the things that we work with our existing customers to kind of help them out, even if it's just a few hours of this and a bunch of other things. So hopefully this is impactful. Hopefully, now these are the things that you can do to make sure that your meetings are not a black hole. And as a business, especially now, you cannot waste time. Time is the one thing you cannot manufacture. It's just a thing that you purely lose. So, use these tools and more so that you don't waste your time and you maximize that time that people have together, especially that through it's remote. And even doing this when they're all together, it's still important, because there's always somebody who physically couldn't come to the meeting, or you wish you capture that. So anyway, that's kind of my coffee talk with Conrad today, and hopefully this makes a difference for you guys. And I'd love to hear any questions you guys might have.
Great, thank you, Conrad. We do have a couple questions, but I looked at our attendees list, and speaking about bringing people in, I saw that Kristen San Ramon is on the line right now, and I figured I'd bring her off mute and let her say hi.
Hey everyone, it's Kristen here. Yeah, so I actually was out of office yesterday, and I did get that notification that Conrad added me to, a message, and I was able to read back and see what it was that I missed. So, that's also one of the really cool features that I love about Teams. And if everybody knows, I love Teams.
Yes, and a little bit of background if you haven't met Kristen. Kristen is our resident productivity specialist who embeds with companies in order to find the best way to apply Teams to their business processes. Wow, we've got quite a few questions here.
All right.
The first question up is, do new employees gain access to past team meetings?
Yeah, so if you have a new employee that gets added into a team, they're available to get access to the thread within the team. This one, it was a separate meeting. You get a little bit more control when you want, because you're adding people into that meeting. So it's kind of make an assumption of, well, you want to add them in because you want them to continue the conversation, or you want them to see the history and the content, so you get some choice. But when you're in a team, why wouldn't you want to know the history of the team? Well, maybe somebody said bad somewhere before and they're terrible. That person doesn't work here, but it's pretty much self-explanatory. But yes, they can get access to the same chat and content.
So can an action or decision list be easily generated?
Yeah, so one of the things that's good within here, so in terms of like an action list to go do something, that's a place that in part of this meeting, and probably something you should have within your team itself is planner, because that's the place where you normally take execution for something. And so if you had a meeting that was, let's say, it's a sales meeting, and we're gonna say, okay, well, now we're going to kind of decide on the right content. Sean, you're gonna do this, Kristen, you're gonna do that part. So we could capture it as notes if we want. But those are things I would say build a culture, and this is something that Kristen would work with you on is, hey, let's go ahead and open a planner, because we already have a planner that's there. Let's start creating that card. And the creation of the card, what goes in it. If we're recording that meeting, the context of everything goes with it. But I may want to record actions in Planner, because not only is it good at kind of managing that in a great centralized place location, the thing that I love, and maybe a future Coffee with Conrad, is a thing called Microsoft To Do, because To Do works for things for you, your individual one-on-ones, or people you bring into a shared list, and everything you have in Planner, and your tasks in email. I mean, the thing is phenomenal. So that's the place where I would put that. You could still capture it as notes if you wanted to. That's where that side area that you saw in one of the screenshots, that could help out.
Right. And then the next question is, when looking for something, is it easy to search across team meetings to find a past meeting?
To find a past meeting. If you weren't a part of that meeting, you don't get access to that. In terms of the search, I will tell you this, the team search is really, really good. The one thing that people fail to look at is the filter, because you can filter by the types of things that you're looking for. I don't really remember off the top of my head, Kristen, I don't know if you do either, is if you were in a past meeting that had content on there, even though it kind of trails off your histories list, if you can still search within, the search will still, find that within there.
I know if you recorded a meeting and you're trying to search through something that was said in there, usually through Stream, you can search it that way.
Oh, that's a fantastic point. Yeah, so if you make sure that you recorded it and Stream picks it up, then it'll come up in the because of the transcription.
Yeah, and if I can jump in for a minute. Now, you said that the search within Teams is great. It's sufficient. I don't like the interface. But what I've found is if I'm signed into Bing with my work account, my agileIT.com account, and I search, now there is the Microsoft Enterprise search that rides right along the top of that, and I can search, and not only do I get files, I get chats, I get meetings, actually it searches within the files, so it's a constant index, and it's anything I have access to. So if I'm added to a meeting in the past, I would believe that I would be able to find or surface that information through a search as well. And it's all the same search. I mean, it's the same search happening in Teams. It's just that you have an actual search engine interface into your enterprise.
Ooh, good. What are the questions?
Let's see. I don't see any other questions in the panel right now. I have a question. Kristen, you have done a lot of work with the Microsoft architects and solution specialists on teams. Is there anything in here that, to meet Conrad's challenge, that is your favorite thing, or is there something we didn't mention?
For me, it's just the fact that you can pull people in, at the start of a meeting or in the middle of the meeting, just so that everybody is all um, aware of what has happened. The Teams does a really good job of letting people know like what they missed, and like letting people know of any notifications that they have as well. No, not really, not much that I can add here, but no, Conrad did a great job.
Right. I
Right.
aim to please.
We
Yeah.
have one more question. Just jump in.
Okay.
During this COVID-19 pandemic, how valuable is it to start video meetings with some water cooler talk? Um,
Yes, I love the water cooler question. I think, you know, uh, everybody is disconnected right now, and for us, we're all working remote, and we try to find ways ourselves, whether it's our Friday happy hour or additional check-ins. And I think that anytime when people get together, it used to be, there's a change in some of our meetings where it is a little bit more casual in the beginning, because we just need that as people, not just an internal meeting, but with our customers too. It's nice to hear another voice. It's nice to hear a different person. I love both of you and everybody in the company, and I love talking to you guys all the time. But it is so refreshing when you get to talk with other customers and new people, and they're challenging ideas and new problems, and it's just what I need, and I think a lot of other people need that too. So I think it's okay that people are casual. It's just, that might be like, all right, guys, casual talk's over. Now I'm gonna hit the record button. Now let's capture the good stuff. So
And one
don't
thing I've
know the
noticed
timing.
happening almost organically within our company is that people are joining and starting the meetings early. So sometimes I'll be in 3 minutes early just to catch up with anybody else who's kind of ambling in the same way when we'd meet in the conference room. Usually about 5 minutes before us, Josh would be in there setting up the AV. John would come in with his cup of coffee, and we'd sit around and we'd gab for a little bit. And then when the meeting's ready to start, we can start. But it is still important to have those casual connections that occur in kind of a happenstance way.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming up, and we're pushing up on the half hour here. Thank you, everybody, for joining and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and follow. Feel free to ask questions in the comments down below. Remember Conrad's challenge to talk about what your favorite Teams feature is that we exposed here. And likewise, you can view a complete listing of all of our past sessions at agileicht.co/CWC. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Thank you very much, Conrad and Kristen, for joining us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
No
Great.
problem. Have a good one, guys.
Take care.